So we were going to talk about something that I was talking to you about the other day about the Demartini Method that I used with a client.
Yeah.
And how funny it is that you and I were both on the same page in the same week, because you were looking at turning something that happened to you and triggered you and turning that around.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same week as something that kind of triggered me a little bit, and I thought, you know, what is the upside of this? Because, you know, being a counsellor or even somebody that's on their own journey,
yes,
you want to sort of totally always check in with your ego
all the time
and balance it, so
Mm.
you're not getting too sort of like, as we say from New Zealand, a bit up yourself.
Yeah.
And thinking that you know everything and that you're the expert on everything, because we give advice and based on our experience and our training, but we don't know anything and we're still learning and we're still students as well. So it's really funny that the same week you have something and you check in with yourself and go, hang on a minute, what's the upside of this?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm thinking the same thing.
Thing.
Got to check in with myself, you know, make sure that I'm aware, am I, you know, always doing the right thing? What is the plus side of any negative? And I've just been reading about a certain method by John Demartini, Dr. John, and at the same time that you've got something, and it's very similar, maybe not that method, but you were thinking, okay, what's the upside of this? What are the benefits of the thing that happened to me, the thing that triggered me? What are the benefits?
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, but I've got a couple of things that always come back to me all the time of keeping me on track.
Yep.
Sorry.
And so you were saying before that you kind of hit a wall and then you kind of backpedal and kind of freeze.
And I freeze.
You freeze.
And I freeze.
And do you remember what it was that triggered you?
I think anything that I'm not sure of, feeling how I want to explain something to someone or to myself.
Yeah.
And it seems to stop dead there, because it's like as if I don't want to go any further. I don't want to deal with it.
Well, there's a part of you that doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, a part of it.
So if you were to look at the flip side of that and the benefits to you freezing and backpedaling and not wanting to deal with something, can you think what the benefits are?
I think the benefits would be is to stop and write it down, because I feel that if I write it down, it doesn't give me any room other than to go forward.
Ooh. So the flip side of that is that you can pretty much get into gear and get going again if you write it down. But what are the benefits for you freezing though? Like if we come back to what's the benefit? I mean, we know what the downside is, that you feel like, oh God, here we go again, I've gone into freeze mode. But if you were to see the God's eye view of it from above, what would the benefits be of you stopping and being aware and having a think? What are the benefits of that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's great that you can get yourself going again with this method of writing something
down.
But what are the benefits? There's got to be some benefits in there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there would be, because I've always had a problem too with writing anything down. So that's probably a double
kind
trigger.
Of forces you to write.
It forces me to write, because it's like a double trigger.
Yeah.
And having a trauma years ago, as a young girl, of writing, I used to love writing things down in my journal, and I had a really bad trauma with that, and was told never to write anything down again because it gets you into trouble. Well, that trauma, I think, is part of that wall I hit.
Well, let's look at the benefits of that trauma.
Yeah.
I know you've never looked at it in this way, but remember, the way the world is going at the moment, I believe the veil is lifting, and more of us are forced to address our shadow selves.
I agree.
Like, it's harder and harder to run away from yourself. Like,
it is.
It's like everyone's doing self-development. Why? Because we're all in some way hitting some sort of wall or having some problem in a relationship or whatever, and it's saying awareness, isn't it? Like
I think so.
You need to start looking at things differently, because perception's projection. Whatever you believe or have a limiting belief about, you are literally projecting onto other people and other people's behaviours. And it's not serving us anymore.
No, it's not.
And we can't keep doing it.
You're right.
It's like we're moving into this part of the galaxy where truth is the only currency. And if you keep telling yourself lies, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Exactly.
Right? So what are the benefits to you having this trauma of not being allowed or told that you shouldn't write? Who was it that said that?
Well, the benefit to me would be you don't believe what other people think. It's how you feel yourself.
So it's made you had to sit up and think for yourself.
Think for myself.
What else?
And to move forward, well, you know, that's their perspective. Mine's different. And I feel that if I'm living my own truth, it reflects to other people, because you only attract what you put out. So instead of having that what you call lies that you tell yourself, because you are attracting that, because you're not dealing with it.
Nice.
And you know yourself, because you've told me plenty of times, and of course I haven't wanted to deal with it. It's been too hard. So the benefit of that is, yeah, you're right. It's
don't you
think
it's like
you have to do it.
Yeah. Don't you think it's like layers? You peel off one layer, and then, God damn it, there's another layer under there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not fair, is it? It's
it isn't.
The more work you do, the more work you find.
And you know, it is interesting, because you don't realise how deep it goes at that one particular trigger, because it might be on the surface or it might be deep. And I feel that one is a very deep one.
Yeah.
So who knows what else I'm going to...
Here's a curly one for you though. Do you think that you'd be on the path that you're on? Do you think you'd be looking into things that you're looking into? And I'm talking everything. Yeah. Everything from self-development to conspiracy theory. Do you think you'd be on that path if you had had everything your way when you were younger?
Do you know something? Everything that's happened to me, it's been fantastic. Really, I wouldn't change it for the world, because even going through the trauma, even going through any differences with other people, it's made me who I am. I'm stronger for it, and each time I deal with it, I feel stronger.
So the benefits are also
That's
strengths.
the benefit.
So the benefits so far are you go looking at things that you probably wouldn't have looked at before. You've got this amazing awareness of it, and also there's that last one where you're sort of like, oh my God, you know, let's do a deep dive.
Yes.
Don't be afraid. No. You're strong enough to do it. Isn't that amazing?
Exactly. It is amazing. And there's one thing that I do always follow, and I really like it, and it's got the intuitive mind as the sacred gift, and the rational mind the faithful servant. Too many of us honour the servant and not the gift. That goes through my head all the time. All the time, particularly when I come through that's my affirmation for me.
Well, that's good.
And it triggers, it's understanding. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So tell me, Ghita, what's happened at you this week that's triggered you on?
Well, you know how when you're in session with somebody, they might be talking about their triggers, and then your own mind goes, oh, that's one of mine, or something like that, and then it gets you thinking, and then sort of after they've gone, there's that lingering thought, oh gosh, you know, shouldn't I be more further ahead,
Yeah.
more evolved
Yeah.
than that. And so I did a little check-in with myself and said, you know, if you're having an ego reaction, are you egotistical?
So,
you know?
Yeah. So,
I mean, you know, you call me an alpha female,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I suppose I am. You know,
Yeah.
I'm 12 steps down from where my mum was.
Yeah.
And probably 6 steps down from where my sister is.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. So how much of that creeps in to your job? You've got to be careful that because you're in that position of its kind of power,
Yeah.
that you don't use your triggers or allow somebody else's triggers to trigger you. You know, like that transference and counter-transference.
Mm.
So there was a bit of that this week, and I checked in with myself and asked myself some questions, which is really important. Like, okay, so that didn't feel comfortable. What was going on for you? Where does that come from? What is the plus side? What are the benefits to that?
Yeah.
Well, firstly, the benefits were that I checked in with myself.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, was there any ego playing in that?
Yeah.
And be real about it. Don't lie about it. You're uncomfortable. What was there something coming up? Yeah, there was, but it wasn't something that I revealed. Right. But then afterwards, I sat in it and went, okay. What's the benefits to that to me? Well, firstly, obviously, it's that I'm checking in with myself and making sure that there wasn't, and if there was any of it, just double checking in my own mind. And then secondly, it's like, okay, well, maybe there's some more methods that I need to use when somebody is very triggered. Now, clearly, if you come to your counsellor, you're not supposed to be bringing in stuff that should be with a psychiatrist or psychologist, because we don't do mental disorders.
Exactly.
But when you get somebody halfway through a session and you suddenly realise that there's some stuff there that's out of your range, then you've got to be able to deal with it.
Deal with that.
You know, because and that's pretty much what happened for me. So I was like, oh, you know, I've taken on something that more than I can chew, so to speak. But in saying that, there was no sort of evidence on the intake form that was the case. And so I thought, what can I put in place to make sure that doesn't happen again? And so I thought, okay, well, if somebody does book in for certain types of therapy and there's any question on that form, or I don't think there's enough information, I should ring them.
Ring them to let them know.
And say, hey, look, I'm just looking at your form and I just want to make sure that, you know, you're right coming to me and not seeing a psychologist, because this is as far as I go with this method.
Yes.
And anything beyond that is in the realm of mental illness, and you need to seek treatment for that, or a doctor, or medication. But we only go so far as counsellors. We don't diagnose, and we don't take on the heavy stuff. We really just do everyday stuff.
Everyday stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
So for me, the benefit was, I thought, okay, I've got to check in a bit more. I've got to make more phone calls. I have to make sure that I'm not taking somebody on board who's well out of my realm. And you know, there is the other point that everybody is ready to do what they're ready to do when they're ready to do it. And if I think about myself before I did counselling, I was at a point where I needed counselling, and I did a whole lot of different things, and I did a lot of methods and did a lot of work. And it was really like chipping away at the chips. You know, and the person that I was quite reactive, defensive, angry, disappointed, all these sort of things. And I'd say some of the therapists that I went to see, I was pretty shut down. You know, so you know, like when another person does that to you, and you're trying to help them, and they kind of shut down. Well, then you're seeing yourself a few years ago.
You do.
You know,
and another
thinking, oh gosh, there by the grace of God go I. You know, like that was me some decades ago. You know, you get it, but you want to help them, but you've got to also realise and step back and say you can't help everyone, and some people are beyond your skill set.
This is true. I've always felt myself, we're all students and we're all teachers. So therefore, you it's like when you go into school or in a classroom, you get one teacher that you really learn really quickly.
Yeah.
And you might go into another classroom and you don't really relate to that teacher very well. It's same with life. It's same with everything.
And it could be just that, you know, like because we're all sensory.
That's it.
Like some people are very visual, some people are auditory. You're quite auditory, I'm quite visual.
Yeah.
Other people are very much in their bodies and they're in the sensory. And if you have a teacher that's very much teaching visual, all the visual kids do well.
Exactly.
If you have a teacher that talks in terms of feelings, do you know what I mean? So it might have something to do with it's neuro-linguistic programming right there, you know.
A big part of it.
Or you could have a teacher like I had, Mrs. Clarkson, in Birkdale Primary School, who was also my sister's favourite. Yeah. And she just called everyone darling.
Yeah.
She probably didn't remember all our names, but I was an older lady. But she'd say, "Oh, that was marvellous, darling." And you could do the worst drawing in the world. Exactly. And she'd say, "It's marvellous, darling." And we all just thought we were little budding artists, you know. Yeah. And everybody did well in her class because she was literally a positive mindset person.
Exactly.
You know.
But really, really related to the class. I had a teacher in 5th grade at school, and I used to think, my goodness, if I had him all the way through, I would have topped the class for sure, you know. Yeah.
I'm just going to. So, Kathie, coming back to what you were saying before, do you want to do a quick run through of the benefits of that one? Yeah. So let's come back to it. So, who was it that said that you can't write again?
Actually, it was my father. That, as I used to used to love writing. I used to write down with a diary or what young girls do.
Did it have a lock on it?
Yeah, well, it didn't make any difference. My stepmother unlocked that, and the thing is, what I wrote down, it was true to myself, but it was managed to be turned round.
Used against you?
Used against me.
So do you remember what you were writing down?
No.
Not that it matters.
No,
but so
not really.
You wrote in your diary, your stepmother read it.
Read it.
And then what happened?
Usual arguments, abuse, head bashing, you know, who knows, whatever she was, and rather than to deal with her, my father just turned around and said, "Look, just be careful what you write. Don't write anything down because it'll be held against you." So from then on, I didn't bother about doing anything because I guess I would have had that fear of writing something down, and it's been turned around that it's not about me. It's been about them, which isn't. What I wrote, isn't that funny? Yeah.
So what you wrote, whatever it was...
It probably was my mum.
About mum?
Yeah, I'd say because my mum died when I was 8 and I was still...
So you're probably grieving. And
grieving.
Yeah.
Be a lot of
grief. So it should only affect her if she reads it. But she shouldn't have been reading it because it's your private diary.
Exactly.
Okay, so your dad, rather than dealing with her going on, and really it was not her business, but he said...
He took the easy way out.
You think he took the easy way out?
I think so.
You said, if you write it down, it'll be held against you, or, you know, don't write it down.
Just be careful what you write down, it will be held against you. Be careful.
What you
it
write.
affected my schoolwork afterwards too, because I hesitated to write anything down, to be quite truthful, because it was
So let's just stop for a minute.
Yep.
And look at it in terms of a limiting belief that you created. How old were you?
Sorry?
How old were you?
I probably, at that stage, I probably would have been about 12.
12?
Thereabouts, 10 to 12.
Somewhere between 10 and 12.
Yeah.
Right, so, okay, so let's just look at what it could be as a limiting belief.
Yeah.
That if you do write it down, it will be held against you. Yeah. If you created at that age that limiting belief, that if you write something down, it will be held against you in some way, and there's a part of you that believes it, does it make sense that when you do write things down and you write a lot, that something kicks in for you and does this big sort of stop? And hey, you stop writing, procrastinate, stop doing that. What are you doing? Who do you think you are? Stuff kicking in.
It's a feeling of emptiness. I think that's the only way I can describe it. It feels as if it's empty.
So you're very strong, very stubborn 10 to 12-year-old. Because you've decided that if you write stuff down, it will be used against you. And so instead of picking the things you write down, you just went full-blown blanket shutdown, I'm not writing anything anymore.
I think so, because she was a psychopath anyway, and I think it was like a protection.
Okay, so it's tied to your safety and your your fight or flight.
Exactly. It was a protection of here we go again, type of thing.
So literally it had a life-threatening element to it.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, that makes sense why you sort of went all one way.
All one way.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the benefits. You're going to think, what benefits? Right. What are the benefits for you being careful what you write?
Wow. I guess the way I felt. My benefit, probably at the moment that I go blank and then I've got to sit and think about these things.
Well, I wouldn't even go down the track of the writing thing even. Let's just start with the type of person that you are. So it's created this really resilient, tough,
subject to move
person. So you're like, when I stick my feet in, I ain't going nowhere, lady, kind of attitude,
exactly,
right? So
exactly.
So stoic.
Sorry?
Stoic, right? Really, really determined.
Exactly.
You could say stubborn. Yeah.
Yeah, I can
but
be stubborn.
Stubborn can be a good thing.
Yeah.
But you stand your ground.
Yes, I do. But particularly when I've got that strong belief, I just won't shift anything.
Can I make an observation as your friend that you use this? It's got nothing to do with the writing side of it, but you use that strength when you deal with health professionals.
You probably did, right.
So strength. You don't take any crap from doctors. I've seen you. I've seen you. So the benefits are that strength in dealing with health professionals, even though you don't think it relates to writing, but it does. You've been able to deal with that for your own things and for your daughter's things.
Yeah, that's true.
Self and daughter.
Well, I've always been, being a mother yourself. You seem to protect your young. I've always been accused of being crazy, as in for protecting them. And I guess that's probably why I felt so strong with my children, is because there was no one there to protect me.
So highly protective of your children.
Very highly.
And also you've got empathy for people when they do have some sort of issue or handicap, don't you?
Absolutely, because I've got one disability daughter. And she's been what you call a blessing in life, because that's shown me another part of life.
Exactly. So
that's a good benefit.
So one benefit being that strength and being able to stand your ground. you know, also being determined, being able to deal with health professionals both for yourself and your daughter, having the empathy for people with disabilities, highly protective of your children, and grandchildren.
Oh, absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
And you may not see that there's a correlation between this and all of those things, but I would say that there is.
Yeah.
You know, so the benefits of dealing with your dad and your stepmom, even when it started maybe out as the writing thing, you know, has created this person who's got quite a big spine, and she can deal with a lot.
You know,
and really, you need a lot of all of those things to be a counsellor.
You know, I think that's something else that reminds me, and I do remember before my father died, he just said to me, I didn't realise how strong you were. You are a very, very strong woman. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, no worries. I couldn't see myself being it, but obviously he saw it, so...
Well, as they say, the best swords are in the hottest fires, aren't they? So it's kind of like, well, would you be the person that you are today had you not had some adverse things happening to you when you were younger? No. You know, like those kids that always get everything handed to them and nothing's expected of them.
Exactly.
They don't actually go and strive. They've got no drive. They've got no reason to, I'll show you kind of attitude, which you've definitely got.
Yeah. And I think you're right too, because I don't think I'd be the person I am without all that. The other trauma.
So mother, it was, I guess she's stepmom.
Yeah.
She was a catalyst for developing certain things in you.
Yeah, she's a real psychopath.
Yeah.
I tell you what, she was really hard to deal with.
But would you be the person that you are now? Would you be prepared for all those things that you've gone through?
I think
if she was nice.
Well, I'm grateful for her now, because I do understand that. Well, she's my teacher.
She's one of your biggest teachers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at it from that point of view, that she's one of your biggest teachers, and there's all these benefits for the person that you've become.
Yeah.
And remembering that you're always trying to self-improve, and a lot of people never even go there.
Yeah, that's it.
Would you be like that had you never had that kind of a stepmom? Probably not.
Probably not. No.
Probably not. So even though out of the worst of things comes the best of things.
I think so, but I think why it all became so confusing, because it was so much of it all ran in together. And we had, and I think you picked the nail on the head, not the nail on the head with the grief. And I think going through the grief of my mother dying when I was 8, that grief was still going.
Yeah. And don't you think it segued into stubbornness?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'll show you.
Particularly the way she died, yeah. Because they got a lot to answer for, you know. Yeah. They used her as a guinea pig, and I think, and I distinctly can still smell it. It was really destructive, and I think that was another thing with you, that with me being questioning doctors, I question everything. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
But see, the thing is that you can go the other way. You can go into this very vulnerable state where you stay a victim. Yeah. Or you go into fighting mode and you stand up for yourself.
And you're right about that. And I still feel sometimes, I feel as if, am I still a victim of this? And that's something else I like to explore into, probably another day, with it. Am I being strong enough to step over it, or am I classing myself still a victim?
Well, how do you feel about talking about the benefits and seeing that she is your biggest teacher?
Yeah, I reckon that's great.
Does that help you when you think about...
100%, because I never thought about the benefits. So that's interesting. So it's like I was going round and round in circles and not coming off the loop. But when you bring in the benefits, all of a sudden, there's a break here. Yeah, I like
and
that.
Isn't it weird that it's kind of organic? It's kind of filters down somehow, and yet you don't have like a massive epiphany with this method. It's just like, oh yeah, they were actually my biggest teachers.
Exactly.
I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't have the job I've got now. I wouldn't have the family I've got now. I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do that, because I wouldn't really have anything to prove, or any drive, or any determination, or stuff you.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
Interesting, isn't it?
Definitely. And particularly I'm a lot older now too, and with all this going on, and researching myself and reflecting myself and the benefits of myself or whatever, and my age, I don't appear to worry about, pardon the expression, the bullshit of people in life that are not prepared to. No, it just makes me more aware that I don't want to talk about that, or I don't want to walk down that track. Okay, to help people if they're ready to open up, but you know, you can only help those who help themselves, and if they don't want to help themselves, it's a hard act, and I know that because I went down that track and I didn't want to deal with it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, right there is, you know, checking in with yourself and saying, am I lying to myself? Well, that's what we ask our clients all the time when we challenge them sometimes and say, well, you say this, but then you do that. Or, you know, like, it's not that we're meaning to hurt their feelings. We're just trying to get them back to base zero of truth. So that, because you can only operate from truth.
Of course.
Anytime you're inauthentic, you know, it's never going to go right. You're going to have to keep coming back to facing your own demons, right?
Exactly.
So by you doing that, you're asking yourself, you know, am I kidding? Am I lying to myself? Well, that's good. You know, checking in with yourself, and that's what you did recently. That's what I did recently. And you know what? I think we've got to do it all the time. We have to constantly do that.
All the time.
We have to constantly learn new methods and new things and new ways of thinking, and challenge ourselves all the time, because we just can't get comfortable in thinking we know it all, or we're wise, or any of that stuff, because there's always someone to learn off. There's always somebody more advanced than you.
Always.
And there's always somebody that's going to call you on your own stuff, you know. So, you know, we're students as well.
Exactly. And that's why I always say we're all students and we're all teachers. And that's how I look at life now. Because, and you're never too old to learn, and you're never too old to teach.
So the flip side of trauma is just seeing it situationally as being a teacher, as being, oh look, there was all these benefits that came with that, even though that was very painful at the time. If you look at the benefits, it's not painful anymore.
No.
But if you decide to hold on to it as being a trauma and a terrible thing with that perspective, then you hold on to it, you nurture it, you feed it, it gets bigger, it's never going
the
away.
Victim comes in.
So you get to decide, do you want to be a victim? Then you can sit in your ego and be one. There's nobody telling you don't have to, you can do that, but see how far that gets you. But if you decide, no, I need to evolve, I need to be better myself, I need to, you know, check in with myself and, you know, make sure that I am being honest with myself. From there comes growth.
Exactly.
What an interesting conversation this has been.
It has been a very interesting conversation, because even like after my marriage it had finished and whatever, and I thought I couldn't get involved with anybody else because I've got too much rubbish. I didn't want to land on somebody else as well. I needed to get back to understand myself and work on myself, and this is what I did, and it's been great because
And that's so common for women. Once the children are at a certain age, they start looking inwards, don't they?
Yeah. Because it's wow. Sometimes it can be exhausting, particularly when you've got four girls and they're all different personalities, plus your own different personality, plus you've got a husband that's got another personality. It's really a hard one to deal with. So you've got to get rid of some to be able to see who you are.
Yeah, and each level has a plateau,
Yes.
and then you got to like, okay, I got to go up again.
Yeah.
And you think you're getting higher, and you're not.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I'm going to leave it there, Kathie.
Okay.
That's been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thanks a lot for that one.
We should do this more often.
Oh, we will. Okay,
Oh,
thank
yay.
you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.